Captain Ryan had never considered himself a hero, especially not in the grand, intergalactic sense. He was a mercenary, a man who got paid to do the dirty work no one else wanted to. It wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. He had seen his fair share of danger, dodging laser beams, brawling with space pirates, and surviving wars between factions that could barely pronounce each other's names, let alone understand what they were fighting for. So, when the call came to escort an alien ambassador from the planet Rylock 7, Ryan didn't think twice. It was supposed to be an easy gig. He'd done plenty of VIP protection jobs in the past, and the species he was hired to protect weren't exactly known for being dangerous. No one ever mentioned anything about life debts or deepest desires. The moment things went sideways, Ryan knew it was going to be one of those days. They were in a crowded market on a hostile planet, surrounded by a mix of species, some humanoid, some barely recognizable as living beings at all. The streets were packed with traders hawking everything from sentient fruits to laser-crafted knickknacks. Ryan had just stepped into the world's most overpriced food stall when the shots rang out. One hit him in the shoulder, and another grazed his leg. He managed to grab Lasha, the ambassador, just as another bullet came for her. He threw himself in front of her, taking the brunt of the shot straight to the chest. For a few moments, everything went black. When Ryan opened his eyes again, he was lying on a soft, alien bed with a pulsating hum around him. His head was pounding, and his chest burned like someone had set off a fireworks display inside him. But it wasn't the pain that confused him. It was Lasha, standing above him, looking concerned but strangely distant. She wasn't even touching him, but her gaze felt invasive. "Easy," she said in a melodious voice, her alien accent thick but understandable. "You are safe now." He groaned. "Where?" "On my ship." "You're going to be fine. But you must understand, when a life is saved, there is a debt. My people repay debts of bravery in a manner most species would find difficult to comprehend." She hesitated, her expression unreadable. "But I will fulfill it. Your deepest desire, what you most wish." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What? You mean like, a thank you card? A fruit basket?" Lasha didn't laugh. She stepped closer, looking genuinely concerned. "A wish, human. A deep, true desire. What do you need?" Ryan winced and sat up. His chest felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. "Well, if you've got any painkillers, that'd be great. And maybe some water. Also, I could really use a good meal, considering I'm not exactly in the mood for, well, whatever this place calls food." Lasha's large alien eyes twinkled in an oddly uncomfortable way. "Very well," she said, speaking more to herself than to him. "I will give you what you need." She left, and Ryan, still trying to process what the hell was happening, tried to sit up but immediately regretted it as his body protested. He hadn't realized how badly he'd been injured. His side ached, and his arms felt weak. The shot he took to the chest was still fresh in his mind, and he wondered how the hell he was even still alive. Whatever medical technology Lasha had on her ship, it must have been impressive. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was the reward. What the hell was she talking about? His deepest desire? What could an alien, no, a completely different species, possibly think that he needed? A new car? A giant house? $1,000? He didn't even want to get into it. The last thing he needed was for her to misinterpret some half-baked comment he'd made about needing a vacation or fixing his love life. Before he could think too much about it, Lasha returned. She carried a tray of food that looked, well, it looked like it came from some sort of alien creature's digestive tract. It was moving. I'm really not hungry," Ryan said, eyes wide as he stared at the pulsating mass on the plate. "Do not be frightened. It will settle once you—" "No. No, thanks. I'll stick to something that doesn't wiggle." He waved a hand dismissively. "Look, just tell me about this reward thing." Lasha tilted her head, clearly confused. "I am giving you food, as you requested. But you also desire something deeper, do you not? Ryan sighed. Right, that whole deepest desire thing. Well, if I'm being honest, I just need a shower and a bed that doesn't feel like it's trying to kill me. He wasn't sure why he said it, but it felt like the right response. Lasha, wide-eyed, absorbed his words like they were gospel. You wish for a shower and a bed? I can give you this. Before Ryan could protest, she was already standing up. One moment. She darted out of the room, leaving him confused and mildly concerned. What kind of reward was this? It didn't take long for him to realize that Lasha's species interpreted human desires very literally. First came the shower. It wasn't just a shower, it was a literal water-based cleansing ceremony that involved him being doused in a stream of liquid that smelled faintly of flowers, and more than a little like an alien chemical compound he couldn't quite identify. His skin tingled, then burned, and by the time it was over, he felt cleaner than he'd ever felt in his life. But that was just the beginning. The bed? Oh, the bed was another level of weird. It wasn't a bed at all. It was a gravitational mat that shifted with every movement, and Ryan, exhausted and a little woozy from the painkillers, found himself strapped to it with alien technology he didn't understand. What the hell, he muttered. Lasha stood nearby, watching him with a strange look on her face. I thought you desired comfort, she said, so I gave it to you in the most efficient way. Ryan could barely keep his eyes open. He was still in pain, still confused, and now he was deeply uncomfortable. Comfort? Are you kidding me? Lasha's eyes softened. I am sorry, human. Perhaps I have misunderstood. She stepped back, looking genuinely apologetic, but he could swear there was a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. I will try again. You shall have a more traditional bed. Ryan groaned. Whatever this life-debt thing was, he wasn't sure he was ready for the rest of it. Yeah, you know what? Let's just skip to the part where I get a drink, he muttered, sinking into the overly supportive alien mattress. Lasha nodded, taking his words entirely literally. A drink. I understand. Ryan just stared up at the ceiling, wondering if this was all a fever dream or if he had somehow walked into the strangest and most awkward reward system ever invented. This is gonna be a long day, he muttered to himself. And that was just the beginning. Ryan's head was still spinning. The combination of painkillers, alien cleaning rituals, and an absurdly bouncy bed was enough to make him wish he'd never taken that damn bullet for Lasha. The whole thing was starting to feel like one big cosmic joke, only, he wasn't sure who was laughing. When he finally mustered the strength to sit up, he noticed Lasha hovering nearby, a strange gleam in her large, alien eyes. She had been acting a little too attentive. The kind of attention that was making Ryan feel more like a specimen than a savior. He didn't like it. Feeling better, she asked, her voice soft, but there was a hint of excitement in her tone that made Ryan even more uncomfortable. Sure, I guess, he grumbled. His chest still throbbed where the bullet had made contact, but he wasn't about to complain. Not when he had no idea what her species considered a reward. He pushed himself off the bed, feeling slightly disoriented as he stumbled toward the strange metallic window. The stars outside the ship shimmered like diamonds, and for a brief moment, he wondered if this was all some kind of elaborate dream. But no, the pain was real. Lasha's presence, too, was unsettlingly real. So, about that reward, Ryan began, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. You know, I didn't exactly sign up for whatever this is. He gestured to his current situation, a pristine alien ship with way too much weird tech and, now, a bizarre sense of obligation from Lasha. Lasha tilted her head, her antennae twitching in curiosity. You wished for comfort, or rest. I provided this. Ryan snorted. Comfort? What is this, some kind of human torture device? This thing, he pointed at the bed that seemed to move on its own like a living organism. It's like I'm being held hostage by a mattress with issues. She blinked, clearly not understanding the joke. You do not like it? She asked. Ryan resisted the urge to facepalm. Look, what I meant was, I don't need an alien massage or whatever the hell this is. I just need a drink and maybe something that doesn't give me a headache. A pause. Lasha blinked twice, her large eyes narrowing. A drink, she repeated. I understand. Ryan slumped back against the wall, not sure whether to be amused or horrified. He'd been in tight spots before, but this was a whole new level of awkward. He didn't even know if she was being literal or if there was some bizarre alien custom at play. She had already gone full throttle with that whole shower thing, and now she was focusing on what, exactly? He had a sinking feeling it was going to get worse. Before he could even process the thought, Lasha returned with a sleek glass filled with a glowing, vibrant liquid that looked a little too much like a chemical cocktail he'd seen once at a shady bar in the Outer Rim. Here's your drink, she said, offering it to him with a smile that was somehow more unsettling than reassuring. Ryan eyed the drink with suspicion. This isn't gonna make me grow an extra arm or anything, is it? Lasha blinked. No, human. It is safe. The drink will help your body recover. She paused. I was told you desire relaxation. Relaxation? Was she reading his mind? He narrowed his eyes, trying to make sense of what was happening. He wasn't even sure what kind of reward she thought he wanted, but at this point, he figured it couldn't hurt. Or so he hoped. He took the glass from her, then paused, still feeling oddly uneasy. The liquid inside shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and for a moment, he wondered if he should just say no and get out of there. But he was still alive because of Lasha, no matter how weird this all was. All right, I'll bite. He took a sip. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, his whole body stiffened. It was sweet. Too sweet. Like syrup mixed with something tangy and electric. And then, a peculiar warmth spread through him. He could feel his muscles loosening, his tension melting away, but then it kept going. The sensation was getting stronger by the second. Ryan blinked rapidly as the heat in his body escalated. It was like the drink was turning his insides into a furnace. His throat tightened. What the hell? Lasha was watching him closely, her gaze unwavering. Is it not to your liking? She asked, though her tone suggested she didn't quite grasp the problem. Ryan tried to focus, but all he could do was fight the overwhelming surge of warmth, like the drink had activated something inside him, something unsettling. He quickly put the glass down and took a step back, feeling lightheaded. The room seemed to spin. I think I need to lie down, Ryan muttered, trying to steady himself. Lasha stepped forward, her eyes softening. I am sorry, human. I did not mean to cause discomfort. I will make adjustments. She moved closer to him, her hand reaching for his shoulder. Ryan instinctively jerked away, but Lasha was already too close. No, it's not, look, it's not that. Ryan stammered, his heart racing, his head spinning. It's just, this whole thing it's a little too much, all right? Lasha seemed unfazed by his sudden awkwardness. She turned and, without missing a beat, went to another console, speaking in a language Ryan couldn't understand. Whatever she was doing, it involved several buttons and a series of bizarre symbols flashing on the screen. The next thing Ryan knew, the sensation of warmth began to dissipate. Slowly, his body returned to a semblance of normalcy, though his mind was still reeling from the bizarre experience. He was half relieved, half confused as Lasha turned back to him, a slight frown on her face. I will have to refine my methods, she said quietly. Ryan, still dazed from the drink and the weird alien atmosphere, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Refine? Lady, I'm pretty sure I'm done with whatever that was. Maybe just, keep it simple next time. Like a cold beer. Or maybe, I don't know, anything that won't make me feel like I'm on fire. She nodded, still not quite getting it. Understood. A beer. Perhaps, a human beverage will do. Ryan chuckled weakly, rubbing his temples. Yeah, that sounds good. Something normal. But that was the problem. Nothing about this was normal. and he had a feeling that whatever Lasha was going to try next was going to be even stranger. He wasn't sure how much more of this he could take, but at least, for the time being, the fire inside him had subsided. All he had to do now was brace himself for whatever weird reward she was planning next. And he had a feeling it was going to be a long ride. Ryan couldn't decide whether to laugh or scream as he sat on the bed, nursing his headache from both the ridiculous drink and the even more ridiculous situation he was in. Every moment felt like a punchline to a joke he didn't understand, and yet somehow, he was the punchline. Lasha, ever the determined alien ambassador, was standing in front of him with a look of intense concentration. She was fiddling with a strange device that seemed to hum as it floated in midair. To her, this was all routine. To him, this was the start of a nightmare he hadn't signed up for. "I have studied your human ways," Lasha said with a solemn tone, not seeming to notice the sweat forming on Ryan's brow. "This beer you spoke of. I will attempt to procure it. But I must warn you, Rylock 7 does not have the exact ingredients you desire. However, I will provide something similar. It will meet your needs." Ryan could only stare at her, blinking. Hold on, he muttered, trying to clear his head. "You're seriously telling me you don't have? I don't know, beer? In the entire galaxy?" Lasha didn't seem to register the absurdity of his statement. Instead, she continued working on the floating device. "The concept of your beer is foreign to us. But I am confident I can create something that will satisfy you." Ryan leaned back, feeling the exhaustion hit him. This whole ordeal was starting to feel like a bad reality show, the kind where you couldn't turn away, but you also didn't want to be a part of it. He had come here expecting a simple job, protect an ambassador, collect a paycheck, and move on with his life. Now, he was stuck in a weird alien ship, recovering from a bullet wound, while some extraterrestrial woman tried to figure out what he wanted as a reward. But the real kicker was the lack of communication. Lasha had no real sense of human humor. When he tried to explain that her version of comfort was more terrifying than helpful, she didn't get it. And when he asked for a drink, the whole beverage experience had left him wondering if there was some kind of cosmic joke at play. Ryan finally gave up trying to make sense of it all. He needed to stop thinking, just go with the flow, and get through whatever bizarre situation Lasha was about to put him in next. He wasn't sure how much more he could take, but he had to at least try to stay grounded. "That thing you're working on," Ryan began, his voice weary. "Is that going to be another one of those things that tries to turn me into an alien experiment?" Lasha didn't look up. "No, human. This is only a machine to replicate your beer. It will not cause harm." Ryan wasn't so sure about that. Everything about her was so precise, so literal. She was taking his requests seriously, but he was starting to feel like the subject of an alien anthropologist's study. Lasha was about to turn his simple request into something much more complicated. A few moments later, the device activated with a soft whirring sound, and a pale, translucent liquid filled a small glass. Lasha handed it to him with all the seriousness of a priest offering a sacred relic. Ryan eyed the liquid cautiously. It looked like some kind of glowing goo, with swirls of color that seemed to shift as if alive. "What the hell is this?" "It is a substitute," Lasha explained, still dead serious. "I believe it will meet your needs. Please, drink it." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Is this going to make me feel like I'm on fire again?" Lasha nodded thoughtfully. "It is designed to give you a sensation of warmth and relaxation. Much like your human beverage." Ryan sighed deeply. "Yeah, well, I don't need another fireball in my stomach. I need relaxation, not a flaming gut. Relaxation is precisely what this will provide." Ryan hesitated for a moment but then took the glass, hoping he wasn't about to have a repeat of his last experience. The moment the liquid hit his tongue, he realized it was even stranger than the first. It tasted like a mix of metallic sweetness with something that felt almost electric. But the weird part was how quickly his body reacted to it. There was a warmth, yes, but also something else. A tingling sensation that started in his chest and spread outward like he was wrapped in a heat blanket. It wasn't unpleasant, but it wasn't exactly what he had expected. Ryan put the glass down, his eyes wide. Okay, that's strange. But it's better than whatever that first thing was. He paused and shook his head. But this doesn't feel like beer. This feels like someone tried to brew a glowing cactus juice mixed with the feeling of static electricity. Lasha looked down at the empty glass, nodding slowly as though trying to gauge his reaction. I see. It is, not precisely what you requested. But I shall improve upon it. Ryan took a deep breath, trying to process his thoughts. This whole reward thing was getting out of hand. Lasha wasn't just fulfilling his needs, she was overachieving, to a point that it made him wonder what the hell her idea of satisfaction was. He wasn't sure if he wanted her to keep trying to get it right or if he just wanted to crawl into a real bed and pretend this whole mission never happened. Look, I appreciate the effort, I really do, Ryan started, rubbing his temples. But maybe just, ask me next time. I mean, do you even know what relaxation means? Or are you just winging it here? Lasha, ever earnest, gave him a concerned look. I am doing this for you, human. You risked your life for me. I must repay you fully. Ryan wanted to tell her that all he really wanted was a quiet corner, a glass of water, and a week-long nap. But he knew he wouldn't get through to her. Her species seemed incapable of understanding human nuance, and at this point, he was starting to feel like a human-shaped problem for her to solve. I'm not sure how you repay a life debt, but I'm pretty sure it's not by sending me into some sort of intergalactic spa treatment gone wrong, Ryan muttered. Just keep it simple. A nice meal. Maybe some privacy. Lasha tilted her head again, clearly processing his request. Very well. A meal and privacy. She said it as though she had unlocked the secret to human needs, and Ryan wasn't sure whether to be grateful or terrified. Before he could ask for any further clarification, Lasha was already out the door, leaving him alone in the room. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to think about what it would be like to sleep in a real bed again. And maybe, just maybe, this whole strange experience would finally be over. But then again, he had learned by now that simple was a concept Lasha clearly hadn't mastered. And he couldn't help but wonder, what on earth, or, more accurately, off-Earth, was she going to bring back next? Ryan sat on the bed, staring at the door Lasha had just exited, still processing everything that had happened so far. He had expected a simple rescue mission. Protect the alien ambassador, get paid, and move on. Instead, he was in the middle of an intergalactic mess, getting rewards that were far more confusing and uncomfortable than he had ever imagined. The whole situation was starting to feel like a bad dream, one that he couldn't wake up from. Lasha's attempts to fulfill his deepest desires had already resulted in a weird drink and some questionable moments that Ryan was trying to forget. And now, she had gone off to get him a meal, probably something as bizarre and alien as everything else she'd shown him so far. For a moment, Ryan considered making a break for it. Maybe find an escape pod, try to return to Earth, or at least get some space from this whole madness. But then reality hit, he was stuck. There was no way off this ship without Lasha's help, and he wasn't about to piss off an alien species that had already gone out of its way to save him. He leaned back against the wall, running his hands through his hair in frustration. It was all too much. All he had wanted was to be a hero for a day, to save a life, and maybe go home with a good story. But instead, he was stuck here, fighting off an alien species' overzealous gratitude. And yet, there was a small part of him, one that he couldn't completely suppress, that appreciated the effort. Lasha genuinely seemed to care. She didn't understand humans very well, but she was trying. The problem was that she was trying too hard, pushing her species' concept of gratitude onto him in ways that just weren't working. Ryan rubbed his temples, his head still pounding from the weird drink she had given him. It wasn't unpleasant, but it wasn't exactly the type of relaxation he had in mind either. What did aliens even think relaxation was? He couldn't help but wonder if Lasha had actually read a manual on human customs or if she was just winging it and hoping for the best. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft sound of the door sliding open. Lasha walked in, her expression as serious as ever, holding a tray in her hands. "I have brought your meal, human," she said, her voice almost formal, like she was presenting an offering to a deity. "I have also made adjustments to the reward. You will find it more to your liking." Ryan eyed the tray with a mixture of suspicion and exhaustion. He had no idea what to expect at this point. Whatever it was, he was pretty sure it wasn't going to be something as simple as a sandwich or a snack. Lasha placed the tray on the table in front of him, and Ryan's stomach growled despite himself. The food, if you could call it that, was an array of glistening, translucent shapes, some pulsating, others shifting in color. It looked like something straight out of a science fiction horror movie. "I tried to mimic your food," Lasha explained earnestly, clearly proud of her efforts. "But we do not have the correct ingredients. I hope this will be acceptable." Ryan stared at the meal, unsure of whether to laugh or cry. "You tried to mimic human food? And this is what you came up with?" Lasha nodded, her antennae twitching as she watched him closely. "Yes, I believe this will give you the sustenance you need, even if it is not exactly like what you consume." Ryan hesitated. His stomach was still growling, and despite the weird appearance of the food, he was starving. Plus, if he didn't eat it, Lasha might take it personally. He took a deep breath and picked up the nearest item, which looked like a glowing jellyfish, its edges vibrating gently. He took a cautious bite. Surprisingly, it didn't taste half bad, sort of like a mix between citrus and some sort of herb. The texture, though, was another story. It was like chewing on something that didn't quite want to be chewed, slipping and sliding in his mouth. He grimaced but forced himself to swallow. "Well," he said slowly, "I guess it's not the worst thing I've ever eaten." Lasha's face lit up, and Ryan couldn't tell if she was genuinely pleased or just trying to keep him from hurting her feelings. Either way, he decided to continue playing along for now. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep this up, but he figured there was no harm in keeping the peace. "I am glad it meets your approval," she said, practically beaming. "I will prepare more of these for you in the future." Ryan nearly choked on his food. "Future? You're really going to make this for me again?" Lasha's enthusiasm didn't waver. "Of course. I wish to show my gratitude, and I will keep trying until I succeed." Ryan held up a hand. "Whoa, whoa. No need to go overboard. I'm fine with a little variety, you know? I'm not exactly that picky." He tried to wave it off, but Lasha didn't seem to register the subtle hint. Instead, she leaned in a little closer, almost expectantly. "You still have not told me what you desire, human. You have saved me, and I must repay you." Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. He had been expecting this. The pressure was mounting, and his brain felt like it was on overload. The whole idea of a reward was starting to feel like a trap. What did he really want, anyway? The logical part of his brain told him it wasn't the food, the drink, or even the weirdly intense attention from Lasha. What he wanted was to get out of this insane situation with a semblance of his sanity intact. "Lasha," he began slowly, "I appreciate everything. I do. But this is all a bit too much. I don't need grand gestures, okay? Just let me rest, and let's call it even." Her eyes softened, and she stepped back a bit, almost as if she had been hurt. "You do not desire anything more? I have tried so hard to understand your species, to reward you. Is it not enough?" Ryan's heart sank. He hadn't meant to upset her, but it was clear that Lasha's idea of gratitude was completely out of sync with what he needed. "I'm sorry, I really am. You've done more than enough. Can we keep it simple?" For a long moment, Lasha stood there, seemingly processing what he had said. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Very well, human. Simplicity it is." Ryan breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally starting to calm down. But as Lasha turned and left, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Her interpretation of simplicity might be as misguided as her attempts to reward him in the first place. He leaned back in the chair, closing his eyes for a moment. At least, for now, the madness had stopped. But somehow, deep down, Ryan knew that whatever came next, it was going to be anything but simple.